here we go with some official court documentation, and you might remember from previous videos where I've been very vocal about the court case being our best bet at understanding this case a lot better and possibly getting close to the truth of what happened to Elisa during her stay at the Cecil Hotel. And I can tell you already, just from seeing a few documents from this motion for dismissal that the defense is going for, or motion for summary judgment, there are new facts already coming out that are drastically tweaking the story as we know it. For instance, one of the biggest things is apparently she did not stay on the 4th floor at all. She actually stayed on the 5th floor. And that starts getting my head going about why are these facts being so misreported. And a lot of the research I've done has been from mainstream media sources. Why are these facts not being checked properly? Were they checked properly? Is there some kind of misinformation campaign that's going on? There is just so much popping up in my head now that I'm actually diving into details that we can say, wow, this is at least information that is the story from people that are actually on the scene there. So we're primarily going to be covering 4 documents, and I have, for your convenience, I've done kind of a copy-paste job and made new PDFs of this information. You can get it in the links in the description box below. I'm hosting them from lordandarts.com. If you have any problems accessing them, let me know. I don't really, do a lot of file sharing from there, but I think it works pretty easily. We'll see. But there are 2 documents that you'll find down there. One of them is this statement of undisputed material facts, which we're going to go over here as well. And the second are statements from people that are actually working at the Cecil, Amy Price, the general manager, as well as the lead engineer and the maintenance worker that actually found Elisa. And we're going to read through them all right now, and I'll comment as we go. So as you can see, the way this document is formatted, there is a section for the opposing party to respond and then provide their supporting evidence of their response, and it has not been filled out yet. So there is some potential for them for basically Elisa's family to look at this list, for their attorneys to look at this list and say, wait, you guys are saying this is an undisputed fact. We don't agree with this one condition, and they write it over on this box and they say, here's why, and here's the evidence to support it. That being said, I think there's probably only a couple of areas that they will kind of kick back on this document, and I'll be curious to see when that gets posted to see what their responses are. The defendants operate a 600-room hotel in downtown Los Angeles called Stay on Main. The hotel is a 15-story building that was originally constructed in the 1920s. The hotel is configured in an E-shape pattern with 3 separate wings that are connected. That kind of just struck me recently when I was looking at it in Google Earth. I know there's a lot of people that are looking at the name connections with the Lam Elisa and the Lam Elisa test and Elisa Lam and all that, but God, isn't it strange that this building is actually shaped like an E? Now I got to tell you, when we were down there, we did see other old buildings in the area that had very similar designs where they were also shaped like an E. I don't know if it was the same construction company that built them back in the day or if it was just a popular way to build buildings, but it is strange because if you look at a satellite view, it is very plainly shaped like a capital E. The hotel roof is a restricted area that is off limits to hotel guests. Well, if you guys saw my episode last week, I think we know that is somewhat questionable. It might be officially off limits to hotel guests. However, if you do some searching on YouTube, you can find plenty of footage of people accessing the roof. It is not marked nor indicated on any hotel marketing material as a common service area for guests. I would assume that's true. However, it is worth noting that the word roof access is noted in that stairwell that lets you access the roof. And at least on the lower levels, there's no signage to say that guests are not allowed on the roof or anything to that effect. I'd have to check with my co-investigator, but I don't know if there were any signs leading up to the roof that might have said that, or potentially at the actual door before you get out on the roof. But I can tell you, at least for the lower levels, I did not see any signage that suggested that that it wasn't a place you couldn't go. It is not represented to any guests as a common service area, and it is not made available to guests even upon request. Well, that's a good thing to know. I guess I won't be asking for a tour of the roof there anytime soon. There are only 4 ways to gain roof access. 3 of the ways are exterior fire escapes on the sides of the hotel, which run the entire height of the building. The 4th and final means of roof access is through an interior staircase leading from the 14th floor to the roof. Now, it actually leads from the 15th floor to the roof, but it's the 14th floor if you're counting them manually outside, because there is no 13th floor in the building, even though there actually is, but there isn't. The rooftop access door is equipped with an electronic alarm system that alerts hotel employees when the rooftop access door has been opened. I don't know for sure or not if that system is working based on the experience I had there with my co-investigator. You know, it's not like he ran to the roof and then we left immediately. We sat in the lobby for a pretty long period of time and discussed what his experience was up there. I'm pretty sure if someone was alerted to the fact that he had opened the door up there, they probably would have come up to us in the lobby and asked what the heck we were doing and to get out. That's kind of what I would do, I guess, if I was a security guard responsible for the site, but that is clearly not what happened, at least for us. The electronic alarm is loud enough to be heard on the 14th and 15th floors, and there is a separate alarm which sounds at the front desk. Once again, based on the experience of my co-investigator, there was no audible alarm that could be heard between 2 floors. It might have been a silent alarm to the front desk, we don't know for sure, but there definitely was not an audible alarm, or more specifically, the alarm didn't appear to be working. It did appear to have an apparatus that looked like it was going to be an alarm system, but according to my co-investigator, he pushed right through it and there was no alarm that was sounded at that site where the door was. The alarm can only be deactivated or turned off with a key that is maintained by the hotel maintenance staff. Is it possible that they had shut it off for some reason that day that we were there, or maybe he happened to open the door when they were up there doing some kind of maintenance? Very possible. It's definitely feasible. It is the hotel's policy that at any time the rooftop access door alarm is activated, an employee or security guard is immediately dispatched to manually check the roof area and the roof access door. Sounds like a decent policy. The alarm for the rooftop access door was not activated at any point in January or February 2013. All fire escape routes and the rooftop access door are clearly labeled that they are for emergency use only. If you consider the bottom of the stairs part of the fire escape route, I can tell you that didn't appear to be true from what I saw. Like I said, it might be different once you get up to the door, but on the lower levels, it stated roof access. Not like it was necessarily a feature, but there was no additional signage about roof access being restricted. It just said roof access, that you can get to it through that stairwell, which I'm sure is necessary for the fire escape plan. But, you know, how much would it take to put an additional sign up there, not for general access or only for emergency use or something like that? I don't know. The rooftop of the hotel has 4 1,000-gallon water tanks which supply the hotel with water using a gravity-operated system. So we're finally going to get to understand the systems a bit more through these documents, which is kind of cool. Water is pumped from a main water line at below street level to these 4 tanks. So that probably explains the pumping apparatus that you see in some pictures that is kind of between all the tanks, the thing that seemed to have some graffiti on it at some point. Each tank is approximately 10 feet high and 6 feet in diameter. So that's been a little point of contention. People kind of bounce between, is it 8 feet tall, is it 10 feet tall? It's kind of strange to me that they didn't just get a measurement on it. They're still approximating, but apparently the tanks are approximately 10 feet tall and about 6 feet wide. The tanks are in a difficult to access platform, approximately 4 feet above the roof. I would hope that the prosecution kicks that one back, because that's kind of a subjective term, and being 4 feet off the roof doesn't necessarily make it hard to access, especially when they have a built-in staircase right there. So that one's a little subjective to me. To access the tanks, someone would have to climb a ladder up the platform and then squeeze through the tanks and plumbing equipment to reach another narrow ladder and climb up the side of the 10-foot tall tank. Alternatively, someone could theoretically access the water tank by climbing to the top of an elevator utility room and jumping down upon the water tank from above. So that fits basically with a lot of the theory that we've all kicked around. She either used the stairs that are kind of mounted on the side of that water tank in particular, or she possibly used the stair system that is built onto the elevator maintenance building that is behind the water tanks. The tanks are all fully covered with heavy metal lids that are approximately 18 inches by 18 inches, so now we have a firm size, and it is worth noting that these lids are supposedly heavy. It's weird because in one way, for their case to work, they have to make it seem like Elisa was able to do this herself, but they're also trying to make it seem like it wouldn't be common for a guest to be able to do this, and I believe that's why they're trying to say that these lids are heavy. On or about January 26th, 2013, Elisa made reservations on the internet for a shared room at Stay on Main for a 3-night stay. Check in on January 28th, 2013, and check out on January 31st, 2013. It is believed that Elisa was traveling alone from Vancouver, Canada to California. It is further believed her trip began in San Diego, and her eventual final destination was Santa Cruz. Okay, a couple things here. First of all, I've seen a few news reports, very few, that say that she actually checked into the Cecil on the 28th, so I didn't know if that was accurate information. And I've been putting out that I believe she had stayed there from the 26th. Obviously, we now know that is not true. However, she did appear to arrive in the Los Angeles area on the 26th, so this is now beginning a kind of a new chain of questions, which we'll get to in the next video. Another thing noted here is that she made the reservation for a shared room. See, apparently this hotel also operates kind of like a hostel, and there are rooms that are shared where you essentially just rent the bed. And it sounds like that was the initial type of reservation she had, which is a bit different, I think, from the story that all of us have been kicking around, thinking that she had just rented a room and she was the only person in that room. That's not the case. There's a little wrinkle in it. We now know that she was sharing the room with strangers. We don't know how many strangers, but there's even more wrinkles in that we're going to get to fairly soon here. Elisa Lam was not, nor has she ever been, an employee of the Cecil/Stay on Main Hotel. Elisa checked into Stay on Main on January 28th and was assigned a shared room on the 5th floor. However, 2 days into her stay, Elisa's roommates complained about certain odd behavior by Elisa, and she was then moved to a private room also on the 5th floor. So once again, the story that I've been looking at is she was staying on the 4th floor. We had heard that room 412 in particular was the Elisa Lam room. We now know that is all false information. She actually stayed on the 5th floor. I believe her shared room was 506B, if I recall correctly. I have not seen a room number for her private room. However, she was moved into the private room on January 31st, and she disappeared seemingly over the night of January 31st. So there's really some question as to even her private room. Did she even get to stay in there? Did she literally just put her things in there and then go back out? It doesn't seem like she even spent a night in the private room. So all of you that are going there and renting the Elisa Lam private room, or that have done that in the past, with this information, it seems to me that it's unlikely that she even spent one night in that room. An extensive and exhaustive search of the entire hotel, including the roof, was performed by the LAPD over the course of multiple days starting on February 5th, 2013. Particular attention was paid by the LAPD because it involved a foreign national. That's a little bit, it just hits me a little bit weird that they're noting that in this document, but it is a question that I've raised in previous videos. There are so many missing cases that go on in Los Angeles. Why did this one get this type of attention? Almost like the amount of attention that this case got did not seem to fit with the usual MO of missing person cases in Los Angeles. And I still have that question in my head. According to this document, because it was someone from a different country, that's what warranted them to treat this differently. I have to wonder about the validity of that, but that's as it's stated on this document. The LAPD set up a command post in the lobby of the hotel and organized numerous search teams who were paired with a hotel employee with a master key. The teams then searched, quote, every nook and cranny of the hotel, including the roof. You know, when I was a kid, I would complain that I couldn't find something, and I would frequently say, I've looked everywhere. And my dad would say, well, if you would have looked everywhere, you would have found it. And for some reason that tickles in the back of my mind when I read this. How did you guys search every nook and cranny when, if you would have actually done that, you probably would have found her? Once again, this is just leading me back to that thought of, now we know or think the water tank might be open. And they searched the roof on at least 2 occasions that I've seen according to this documentation, and once with canines. I've done some research into scent transference for canine detection, and it only takes you touching an object for a few seconds for your scent to transfer there, and it stays for literally weeks. And water does not get rid of it. The most damaging element to remove it is actually direct sunlight, which this is the rooftop, so there is some argument for that. However, at the time they were up there, you're talking a week from her disappearance, not even a full week from her disappearance. So a lot of questions popping up for me on this. The LAPD did not approach or inspect the water tanks during their searches. They're specifically calling this out, that they did not look in the water tanks. Once again, if you're investigating the roof, what the hell are you looking at up there? What is there to look at? It baffles. It literally baffles my mind. Like I said, their intent had to be that they thought that they were potentially looking for a body. How can you not see those giant objects that are viewable from street level? It's one of the only things that you can see actually it is the only thing that you can see on the roof if you're looking up at the Cecil Hotel are those giant water tanks. But you don't investigate them? For you conspiracy theorists out there, there is something really itching at me that's very odd about that statement, and about the fact that they have to note that particular statement. We did not look at the water tanks at that time. Why not? Why not? Not that it would have changed any facts in terms of her demise. It might have changed the results of the autopsy, and we certainly probably would have got better toxicology results, which, even according to the people conducting the autopsy, were definitely impacted by the lack of blood from her body being in the water that long. The hotel roof access door was checked to make sure it was functioning. I wonder if they've checked it lately. After the LAPD detectives found nothing during their search, a second search of the entire hotel, including the roof, was conducted by numerous canine units. So we're not just talking about one dog, but apparently several dogs were taken up to that roof and still did not detect a body that was sitting in a water tower that was open. Unfortunately, Elisa was not found during the LAPD searches. On February 19, 2013, a hotel guest complained about water pressure while taking a shower and also about a strange odor. At that point, maintenance employee Santiago Lopez went to the roof of the hotel to check on the water system. Mr. Lopez took one of the 2 elevators to the 15th floor, then proceeded up the stairway to the rooftop access door. He then deactivated the alarm on the door, entered the roof, and walked to the area where the water tanks for the hotel are located. Next, he climbed up the platform upon which the water tanks sat and finally climbed a ladder up onto the main water tank. Mr. Lopez noted that the hatch to the main water tank was open, and he looked inside. It was there he found Elisa's body floating in the tank. In one way, I'm almost wondering if the hatch being open is part of a reasoning needed by the LAPD for them to assume that she had harmed herself. It's definitely been one of the points of contention through my investigation of this. How did she get that hatch closed? Now we're hearing, nope, the hatch was open, which definitely leads to the possible accidental death conclusion that they have, but once again raises all these questions about how did they miss it. After discovering the body, Mr. Lopez immediately contacted his supervisor, Pedro Tovar, by walkie-talkie. The two went down to the first floor office to advise Amy Price, the general manager of the discovery, and to notify the authorities. Elisa's body was extracted from the water tank by the Los Angeles Fire Department, who had to cut a hole in the bottom of the water tank. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office investigated and determined that Elisa's death did not involve any foul play. Further, an autopsy was performed, and the subsequent report identified the cause and manner of death as an accidental drowning with bipolar disorder as a contributing but not related condition. And that wording is a little odd, and I don't believe it matches what's actually on the autopsy report, so we might see that get kicked back by the prosecution as well, or brought up in this case if it actually goes to a full trial. The LAPD eventually concluded their investigation of Elisa's death, but could not conclusively determine how she reached the roof or accessed the water tank. To me, that says they did not find any trace evidence anywhere of her path to the water tank. That means they didn't find fingerprints on a staircase somewhere. Like we said, the dogs didn't seem to detect any scents, which would have been transferred after her being in contact with an item for only a few seconds, like a staircase. That is a pretty big statement, and our first kind of peek into their side of the investigation and what they truly understand about what she potentially did to herself on that evening. And that is a big glaring hole that once again makes me ask the question, how do you rule out foul play? If you can't even detect the path that she took there, knowing that she had to use her limbs, she had to use her shoes, she had to use her hands to get there, but you can't find some type of trace evidence, prints, hair, fibers, anything to figure that path out? Very, very odd to me. Defendants had no prior knowledge or observation of any prior instances of anyone being injured at or by the rooftop water tanks before February 19th, 2013. And I don't know if that defense is really going to hold up. Just because she's the first person that harmed herself in that way doesn't mean that there isn't an inherent risk that was present the whole time for all of those previous residents. As I've mentioned, they still have a risk there if they haven't added locks to those hatches. And just because OSHA or the fire department isn't citing those risks, I don't think legally that is going to completely wash the hands of the Cecil in this. There are certain things that businesses should be able to foresee in terms of protecting people that come into their businesses. And keeping your water supply protected seems like a pretty common, simple one to me. It definitely would have stopped this whole occurrence from happening. I'm talking $20 worth of hardware between latches and locks, and Elisa would have not died in the water tanks. It's really kind of silly. In fact, defendants had no prior knowledge or observation of any instances of trespass or unauthorized access to the rooftop water tanks before February 19th, 2013. In addition to there being no other instances of injury by means of unauthorized rooftop water tank access, defendants are unaware of any Cal OSHA violation citations regarding any of the rooftop water tanks. Since at least 2010, the hotel has passed all Los Angeles Fire Department Chiefs Regulation 4 testing of fire protection equipment, which includes the 3 exterior fire escapes. Aside from the instance with Elisa, the hotel has never had any other injuries to guests due to the rooftop water tanks, and there have been no citations by the City of Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety regarding the water tanks on the roof. Between January 28th, 2013 and February 19th, 2013, the alarm to the rooftop access door was functioning properly. I think that's going to be a point of contention, especially if this goes to trial. I think the process about how that is tested is going to come into question, and they're going to need to produce some type of log that the maintenance staff keeps showing when they test it, how often they test it, and what the result of that test is. If they don't have that information and they're just going to go by word of mouth, I don't know if that point's going to hold up in court. It'll be very curious. I'll be curious to see how that plays out. Defendants were not aware of any instances between January 28, 2013 and February 19, 2013 where the rooftop access door alarm was unintentionally activated. Defendants never expressly or impliedly approved, authorized, consented, endorsed, invited, or permitted guests or third parties to access the rooftop water tanks. Defendants never advertised or marketed the roof. Nonetheless, the water tanks as places available for guest access. Despite the best efforts of investigators, there are no witnesses and no evidence to identify the exact means of when, why, or how Ms. Lamb accessed the roof and water tanks. It seems clear that even they don't have basically an understanding of what motivated her to do that and how she did it, which I think is fairly significant. So that's it for the undisputed material facts. I didn't realize it was going to go this long, so I'm going to break it at this point. So there will actually be another video with more court documents we're going to review. Thank you all for joining me on this edition. I will catch you next week on the Geek and Dorks channel. Have a great weekend.